not trust you. He may, but I do not.
Noted.
My friend's trust is not the issue today. It is my trust you must earn.
G'day, the year is 2001, and you're living in blissful ignorance of all of today's problems. The humble Nokia is the mobile phone of choice, Windows XP has just released, and Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory is topping the charts. In November, the Xbox and Halo CE release, and Halo is an unapologetic celebration of military might as the UNSC wages a galactic war of survival against the evil Covenant Empire. The game is simple and idealistic in its portrayal of the UNSC, and unites a world of gamers burning with a desire to defend freedom and fight on the clear and objective side of good against an undeniably evil enemy. While not the sole reason for Halo's success, its timing relative to the September 11 terrorist attacks and the Western zeitgeist surrounding them should not be considered a coincidence. In a time of uncertainty and fear of religious extremism, the Master Chief was a hero that many chose to stand beside. Generally speaking, the stories of the first 5 Halo games depict the UNSC as a force of moral and objective good, with the deconstruction of traditional notions of heroism and the moralities of good and evil coming later under 343. For the most part, under Bungie, humanity and the UNSC are fighting an all but impossible war against a morally evil enemy. It's not even worth arguing the Covenant are not evil under Bungie's tenure. They're literally a technologically superior genocidal hegemony that enslave their sub-factions and burn populations by the planet load. Canon statistics are hard to nail down, but it is estimated that roughly 24 billion humans were killed during the Human Covenant War. In a war of this scale, there is no place for peacetime ambiguity or pacifist choice. The UNSC is literally fighting to the last man for the survival of humanity against extinction. The stakes are clear and of the highest order. For the most part of Bungie's collective campaign, excusing the extended media, you are a soldier on the ground, whether that is a Spartan or an ODST, fighting alongside the UNSC, and there is no time for the deconstruction of the dichotomy of good and evil or grey zone questions about morality. Humanity's military is the last line of defence against the coming destruction. We fight or we die, which frames all subsequent military actions as acts of heroism. Things like the individual sacrifices of Noble Team during the Battle of Reach, Captain Keyes holding himself together long enough for John to salvage his neural lace, Foehammer returning and attempting to rescue Chief and Cortana from the Pillar of Autumn, the ODSTs dropping onto Delta Halo alongside Chief, Cortana remaining on High Charity to ensure that Amberclad's reactor detonates, and the collective crews of the Forward Unto Dawn and Aegis Fate volunteering to jump through the Earth Arc portal to finish the fight on Installation 00. Very likely a one-way trip. Because these key events are so closely tied to military actions, Bungie went to great lengths to develop the UNSC, making its systems, processes and people as authentic as possible. From weapons and uniforms through to the characters themselves, the UNSC under Bungie had a real sense of legitimacy, which complemented the first-person shooter genre. The epitome of this comes in Halo 3's ending, which reflects a sense of pride both for the UNSC and the military alliances they forged with the Sangheili, literally ending with their military funeral and a 21-gun salute to the fallen. It's clear that the developers at Bungie had tremendous respect for not only the UNSC but the concept of military service in general, choosing to celebrate the ideals of service, brotherhood and sacrifice. I suspect this is one of many reasons that Bungie's Halo resonated so strongly with fans, because despite the uniforms, it is a fundamentally human tale that is universally relatable. There are very few humans that would sit idly by and watch an alien collective destroy their people. At least in the case of the idealised humanity presented by Bungie. And appropriately enough, a modern human military fighting against a technologically advanced alien collective was well suited to the black and white cosmic epic of Halo's original narrative. Tremendous in scope, but at the same time very simple. Humans good, aliens bad. So it should be no shock that Halo was a hit with veterans and civilians alike. I would argue that the timing of Bungie's Halo versus 343's in terms of the portrayal of the UNSC are reflective of Western attitudes towards the idea of military service at that particular time, which changed drastically over the 10-year period between November 2001 and November 2011, with Bungie painting the military as a force of good, and with 343's reflecting a growing sense of mistrust in the military-industrial complex. Timing is everything, and the timing was just right for Bungie's Halo, and its idealistic portrayal of the humans of the UNSC. For its successor, let's discuss. In 2012, moving into the 343 and post-Bungie era, just focusing on the games, there is a distinct shift in tone, genre, and attitudes towards UNSC authority and the idealised senses of good and evil established under Bungie. And it starts with the aesthetic. Bungie's Halo had a clear boots-on-the-ground military sci-fi aesthetic, whereas Halo 4 shifts away from this approach and into the genre of sci-fi fantasy with the inclusion of the Didact and Forerunners. A seemingly slight distinction in terms of enemy, until you realise that both the UNSC and Covenant are underpinned by plausible physics and the conventional concerns facing any present-day military. Now, when I say plausibility, I mean believable within the suspension of disbelief that one embodies when ingesting science fiction. I.e., I can readily accept the technologies like Covenant shields, plasma swords, and cloaking devices as something that an advanced alien collective would possess in the 2500s. That said, those capabilities are underpinned by logic and physics, which is what gives them their credibility. They thus become susceptible to attack, as all capabilities have critical requirements to function. Undermine that requirement and you get your attack vector. Grunts need methane to breathe, which is highly flammable. Jackals need shields or long-range weapons because they lack physical strength. Brutes need outlets for their rage, often found in each other, which can be exploited by you. And elites need station, prizing honour and status above all else. Undermine their hierarchy, and chaos will follow. All these requirements paint a rich fresco of strength, weakness, and plausibility for the enemies of Bungie's Halo, mirrored by similar strengths and weaknesses found within the UNSC. Despite Chief's super soldier status, he cannot defeat the Covenant alone, calling on everything in the UNSC's arsenal to assist.
Tank beats everything! Oh man! I can do this all day!
From ground and air vehicles through orbital weapon systems to the soldiers themselves. Chief's entire journey through Bungie's Halo is fought alongside the men and women of the UNSC as part of a collective military campaign, feeling every loss and win along the way. The same cannot be said for Chief or the enemies he faces during 343's era. Let me give you a tangible example. Covenant armies don't just appear on planets, they're transported there by ships. Those ships need fuel, which means the Covenant need refineries and supercarriers to refuel their fleets during operations, a fact that Noble Team exploits during the events of Halo Reach. The Covenant's advanced capability exploited by the plausible critical requirements. If the Covenant do not have fuel, they can't get into battle. As a point of comparison, in 343's era, how do the Forerunners get into battle? They teleport. How do they teleport? Space magic. Where does that space magic come from? Plot convenience. How do you undermine such a capability? You get the idea. Bungie's UNSC and the Covenant are underpinned by military science fiction logistical realities, helping to sell both parties as plausible, and the fictional war you're fighting in as a tangible first-person experience. 343's is underpinned, or it would be more accurate to say undermined, by sci-fi fantasy magic that lacks the same logical grounding. Made worse by the fact that for much of Halo 4, 5 and Infinite's campaigns, Chief works in isolation from the UNSC, moving away from a soldier fighting as part of a collective force with a strategy and ultimate goal, to save Earth, to that of a lone survivor trying to find their way home. This by itself is not a problem, particularly the lone survivor piece, as much of Bungie's Halo sees the protagonist separated from their squad. But regardless of this fact, you were always a soldier following the orders of the UNSC and part of a greater strategy, fighting to save Earth and her colonies from destruction. This is not the case in 343's Halo.
And don't even get me started on the Halo show, emotionally stunted, insubordinate moron.
It begins in Halo 4 with Chief's interactions with the UNSC, or more specifically, his interactions with the chain of command and their attitudes towards him during those encounters. One of the first interactions Chief has with the new UNSC is when he encounters the Spartan Force for the first time.
I thought you'd be taller.
The immediate undermining of the protagonist, again, not a problem in isolation,
But it might have had more impact coming from someone other than Little Miss Spartan Strike here.
sets a precedent for future interactions. Aside from Commander Lasky, the new UNSC are dismissive of Chief and Cortana's concerns and reports. Though not without valid reason, this is the first time in a Halo game that the protagonist has been at real odds with the UNSC, not counting your time as the Arbiter, naturally. The player then becomes a soldier that all but reluctantly follows the orders of an old and jaded leader, until those orders become disparate from the goal of saving humanity.
The Didact has to be stopped. If you won't do that, I will.
I am ordering you to surrender that AI!
No, sir.
To be fair, this moment is in keeping with Chief's character, and it's not uncommon to encounter toxic leadership within a military chain of command. However, the ultimate heroes of Halo become Chief and Lasky, who disobey direct orders and work in isolation from the UNSC in order to do the morally right thing. Infinity's late support to the final mission accepted, Chief still saves the day, but without fighting alongside the UNSC or the wider command of a competent UNSC leader. This is a far cry from the high watermarks and idealistic leaders of the UNSC, as depicted in Halo 3 and Halo Reach.
Where's the rest of your platoon?
Wasted, Sarge.
And we will be too, sir, if we don't get the hell out of here.
You hit Marine?
No, sir.
Then listen up!
I would follow that man into the depths of hell itself. Compounding this, 343 begins the case study of Master Chief's humanity in the Spartan 2s, focusing on the dark side of Dr. Halsey's program of kidnapping children and turning them into sociopathic weapons of war originally scoped to crush humanity's insurrectionists. Asking the question, is John more machine than man? Yes, I know this is explored at depth in the novels, from both the pre-343 and post-Bungie eras, but for the purposes of this exercise, we're just scoped in on the game for this discussion. None of this exploration in the games is clear-cut, and much of it subverts the once clear lines of good and evil established under Bungie.
Dr. Halsey, you're bending history for your own favor, and you know it. You developed the Spartans to crush human rebellion, not to fight the Covenant.
When one human world after another fell, when my Spartans were all that stood between humanity and extinction, nobody was concerned about why they were originally built.
While intriguing, it ultimately undercuts the clear binary oppositional nature of the human Covenant conflict in Bungie's Halo, in turn creating moral ambiguity about your actions working with the UNSC, and it's only possible because of the clear moral foundations laid for the UNSC and the Spartans by Bungie. Regardless, no longer is the UNSC depicted as a heroic force of objective good fighting the evil Covenant, nor are they depicted as having totally competent military leaders who make impossible choices and ultimately do the morally right thing for the benefit of humanity. The black and white waters of good and evil now very, very grey. But so what? Halo 4 is just one game, and in isolation doesn't exclusively depict the UNSC as morally ambiguous, nor does it completely separate Chief from fighting alongside it in order to support them. True enough, but this conversation is only just getting started. Halo 4 also included Spartan Ops, a Halo Waypoint DLC series of cutscenes and missions set 6 months after Halo 4's campaign that focuses on the Spartan 4's missions on Requiem. In this DLC, more scrutiny is placed on the actions of Dr. Halsey's creation of the Spartans, before she effectively commits treason against the UNSC in pursuit of Forerunner knowledge, further blurring the line between friend and foe. Once again, the hero of this story, Spartan Gabriel Thorne, is the hero because he is the one that questions the orders of the UNSC and what it means to be a Spartan. He also goes rogue under the orders of Captain Lasky in order to prevent an Oni assassination attempt on Dr. Halsey.
Hereby ordered to eliminate Dr. Catherine Elizabeth Halsey.
The other Spartan 4s are depicted as cliché meatheads, arrogant, elitist, or willing accomplices to the UNSC's new dark and morally questionable actions. Now, Captain Lasky is also depicted as being uncomfortable with the orders of his higher command.
Halsey knew what she was doing when she made friends with the bad guys.
I'm serious. We shouldn't have to execute a civilian.
No, but it has to be done.
Wait, is that meant to be the same person? Didn't she have a bit of a glow-up between Halo 4 and Spartan Ops?
And I don't trust anyone else to do it right.
There has to be another way. I mean...
I know what you mean, Tom. And I won't see you court-martialed over that woman.
The sympathetic leader who questions everything and refuses to be part of the war machine. Within the space of one game and an online DLC, 343 worked overtime to undermine the clearly framed and simple to understand conflict of Bungie's Halo, distancing the principal characters from the command of the UNSC and demonising the authority in the process. I would have said it was a coincidence with Chief, but when it happened with Thorne and Captain Lasky, pattern recognition. An impressive work of subversion and deconstruction, even without the novels really. While there is no direct evidence to suggest that 343 Industries had an anti-military agenda with their depiction of the UNSC in Halo 4, although that would become apparent later, the Western zeitgeist in 2012 was vastly different from that of 2001. The American War on Terror and the campaign in the Middle East had now been going on for 11 years and was becoming an unpopular and uncomfortable topic among the general population, particularly after the successful operation revelation that killed the orchestrator of the September 11 terrorist attacks, with many beginning to question why Allied forces were still in the Middle East. So, by 343 distancing themselves from the UNSC's military influence and replacing an over-the-hill captain with a younger, more sympathetic leader, it's not hard to imagine that the creative choices were being influenced by the culture of the day. A culture that was seeking less patriotic assurance from its military in its entertainment, and more fantasy escapism. This was peak vampire gothic romance time. Hence Halo 4's tagline, "An ancient evil has awoken."
Or something like that.
That's not to say that 343 was incapable of depicting the UNSC positively. The limited Halo web series Forward Unto Dawn, which released in the lead up to Halo 4, was fairly faithful to its predecessors. Well, apart from the part where all the old UNSC leaders from the time of the insurrection are killed off almost instantly upon first contact with the Covenant, I wonder what symbolism the writer was going for with that. But again, let's just stay focused on the games. It's probably fair to say that the 343 trend of distancing themselves from the UNSC began with Halo 4, but how would it look moving into the next iteration? If Halo 4 was a tentative step away from the sheltered wing of the UNSC, Halo 5 was a Spartan charge through a window. Any sense of the old boots-on-the-ground soldier experience fighting alongside the UNSC in a galactic war for the survival of humanity was obliterated in Halo 5's bombastic opening that felt like something straight out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which was in the process of becoming a cinematic juggernaut in 2015. After just one mission, Chief goes rogue from the UNSC in search of Cortana. Chief is then pursued by Spartan Team Osiris, who work independently of the UNSC military and directly for the Office of Naval Intelligence. The tone and style shifts even further away from the boots-on-the-ground aesthetic, as Spartans play more like superheroes than soldiers. Not a single mission, whether it's the Rogue Blue Team or that of Osiris Space Police, is fought alongside a conventional military force, UNSC or otherwise, with battles instead being waged alongside civilian contractors or Sangheili soldiers, with the all but absent UNSC fleeing for safety at the end of the game at the hands of yet another rogue agent, Cortana. Now, it would be poor form to reduce the UNSC to bit players in a story that they were once the central pillar of, but to basically cut them out completely? But if I was being gracious, this could have been an inadvertent overlook because they were too busy looking inward at the stories they were trying to tell. Regardless, Halo 5 was another step away from the sheltered wing of the UNSC. But then the little RTS that could re-emerged to throw a welcome spanner in the works.
I hope you can forgive this final breach of protocol. It was a pleasure and an honor to serve with you, sir. Do look after everyone for me, would you? Goodbye, Captain. Serena out.
Despite 343's best efforts to sidestep the military aesthetics that had once been such an important part of Bungie's Halo DNA, Creative Assembly, best known for the Total War real-time strategy series, rose to the challenge of paying appropriate reverence to the crew of the Spirit of Fire. Halo Wars 2 was an absolute throwback to the Bungie era of Halo storytelling, once again keeping the line of good and evil clearly defined, and throwing out much of the morally ambiguous deconstruction post-modernist analysis that was plaguing the franchise. Although effectively working in isolation from the greater UNSC, not by choice as they were temporally and functionally dislocated, Captain Cutter and Spartan Red Team were an unapologetically professional depiction of military discipline, following previous orders to the best of their ability to stop the rising threat of the Red Covenant. Sorry, banished. Even if it did cost us beautiful Serana in exchange for whatever the hell this annoying thing is. Halo Wars 2's story was quite well received when compared to Halo 5's. In no small part in this jellyfish's opinion because of the portrayal of the UNSC, to the point where 343 did an about turn with their story for the next installment. And thank God they rebooted Cortana and gave us that caked up weapon, rather than PTSD female Harry Potter over here. Which I can't say with assurance, but I'm almost positive that was what they were planning on doing. Although by this time, the damage 343 had done to the UNSC was beginning to feel permanent, despite Creative Assembly's good work.
Will it live, Oracle? Can it be saved?
Let it never be said that it's too late to change, however. Despite stumbling through a decade of never understanding the importance of the UNSC military aspect of Halo's DNA, 343 came to play with Halo Infinite, at least in terms of the story in the UNSC. That said, I'm not going to make excuses for the handling of multiplayer, split screen, or mission replayability at launch. But I believe their intentions were at least coming from the right place with the story this time. Halo Infinite wasn't necessarily a return to form for the depiction of the UNSC, but it's clear an effort was made to better better align the aesthetics between what had come before and this latest title. You once again fight alongside your fellow Marines, if you took the time to rescue them, that is, which is completely optional. And despite them totally lacking any situational awareness, their presence in place of civilians with guns was a welcome inclusion. The problematic UNSC Infinity, which was equal parts overpowered and useless depending on the requirements of the plot, was taken off the order of battle in the opening moments of the game. The Marvel-esque Spartan 4s were all but eliminated by the banished headhunters, and the Master Chief was once again centre stage as the primary and only protagonist.
Good news.
However, once again, Chief was working autonomously from the UNSC, separated from higher command and forced to operate from previously extant orders to single-handedly win the day, without fighting as part of a higher campaign plan to defeat the enemy. One man using guerrilla tactics against an entire army. More akin to Rambo 3 than Halo Combat Evolved, where at least he had Foehammer, Sergeant Johnson and Private Chips Dubbo.
Was that me?
Consider this comparison. Bungie reaches its military crescendo with the Ark mission in Halo 3. Here, humanity has been pushed back to their final stand on Earth. While the home fleet remains to defend Earth, the UNSC's best take the fight to the Covenant. With the approval of Admiral Hood, one of the highest military authorities in the UNSC, Commander Keyes takes a battle group of UNSC and elites through the Ark portal to stop the Prophet of Truth from firing the Halo array. This is a UNSC main effort. If they fail, everybody dies. Thus, the task force brings everything they can: ODSTs, regular Marines, armour and air support. Chief is but one part of this operation, a very important part, but still a soldier executing a larger plan. Hence the memorial at the end of the game. This is not a funeral for John, it is a commemoration of all the UNSC personnel that fought and died to win the war, and it feels it. There is no such logical climax in Infinite. Instead, Chief kills all the banished lieutenants and has his inevitable showdown with Eshram, effectively ending the UNSC banished conflict. While the moment is personal and poignant, there are no sense of the stakes and scale, nor that you're part of a broader human effort. At the end of the trilogy, we have no idea what the status quo of the galaxy even is, apart from Red Covenant can't fire Ring because bad, or whether there are any connotations for Big Monkey's death. It is another superhero story paying poor homage to Bungie's Halo, despite Joe Statham, one of the original writers, returning for the project. Halo was at its best when you were playing as a UNSC soldier, whether that was Chief, Rookie or Noble 6, or even Captain Cutter, fighting alongside the UNSC as part of a broader conflict that had scale, stakes and a sense of achievement that every one of your fights mattered to the Human Covenant war effort, meaning you had a sense of personal catharsis when the war finally ended. Halo's gameplay loop is fun by design, and Bungie had it down to a fine art by the time they handed Halo off to 343. But gameplay is only as impactful as the story underpinning it, a fantasy that only works if the scale, stakes and story are clearly defined, which for the majority of 343's time with Halo, they weren't. Actions without substance. In short, I don't believe 343 hated the UNSC, but nor do I think they really understood how important they were in terms of framing the stakes and scope of Halo's story. Without the UNSC and fighting as part of the Human Covenant war, Halo loses something of its essence, and becomes more superhero story than soldier story, not helped by 343's desire to characterise the Master Chief, driving a personality wedge between the player and their actions.
Master Chief is human. He's not a machine. He's not a set of armor with a big weapon.
One more word and I'll rip your eye from its socket!
Rather than the cosmic military sci-fi epic created by Bungie in 2001. The foundation of Halo is built upon a simple and universal human truth, that humanity does its best when it's galvanized against a clear enemy. Post-modernist analysis of the morality of the Spartan program, the military and the nature of good and evil are interesting ideas, but are ultimately detrimental to the simple and universally relatable story that Bungie was trying to tell. And I hope future Halo writers take a moment to consider the importance of the military and the UNSC in their stories, because the fandom still has story whiplash from the last about face they did, and the one before that. There is nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned story of good versus evil. Maybe set it early in the Human Covenant War. I hear Harvest is lovely this time of year. Keep it simple, and when all else fails, you can try shooting your way out.
Mix things up a little.
But what do you think, Skipper? Did 343 hate the UNSC, or did they simply misunderstand the assignment? What game would you like to see the UNSC take centre stage in? I personally wouldn't mind a Halo Wars 3 or an ODST 2 myself. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But remember, I'm just a brainless lump. So until next time, hooroo mate.